Can you hit the light? Thank you. Yeah, you can go ahead and you can turn on those two lights too if you want. Thank you. That's fine. Oh, you don't need to turn that one on, just the two big ones. They are on the cable. Huh?
To say, I'm no longer
Thank you for walking out on it. Oops. Someone in the chat said I'm always late, to which I, of course, must respond, I'm never late, nor am I early. I always start the stream exactly when I mean to.
And so we have.
Hello everyone. And welcome. Oh, it's already off? My God, this overhead light. We may be deciding to ignore it. We'll give it one more shot. It's been turning off really quickly lately. But anyway, hello everyone. Welcome to another 10 Forward Weekly. My name is Mike Fadum. I am your community manager. And I'm also known as Ambassador Cal, and this is our weekly Star Trek show. Available now for the first time live on YouTube. Oh my God, it seems to be working okay.
Yay!
So we'll see how that works. And here to spit a few bars to introducing herself is...
Hi, I'm Jet. Okay,
Go on,
and
spit
I
bars.
don't rap, so good luck, Mike. Yeah, I am a systems designer on Star Trek Online. I make ships. I also sometimes have been known to help out with things like, I don't know, Borg queues.
You made Borg queues? But not cubes. Just queues.
I made some custom cubes, but not the art, so
Yeah. You made cubes for the queues?
Yes.
All right, well, tell us a little bit about Borg Resurgence and how that whole process went down. We're going to have John on here, who's the content designer for this particular content, but he is, unfortunately, out sick today, so it all comes down to you, Jet.
Hi, so I know everything about some things, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So the Borg Resurgence event is the event running right now that you should go play in Star Trek Online, well or after you finish, watching this stream. We took some of people's favorite Borg queues, the classics like Infected the Conduit and Kittimer in Stasis. Is that the space one? No, it's Kittimer Vortex.
My bad. There you go.
And Into the Hive. And what John did is John spent a while doing basically a polish pass on them. These are old queues. They date very far back in the game's lifespan.
But yet some of the most popular because, they're queues.
Especially... Infected, not as much. The others has an elegance in its simplicity. But we went through to revamp them, to bring the art up to standards, add voice acting, make it easier for new players to understand, and also for the space queues in that group to go add elite versions to them for the players that are more inclined to seek out such content to have it available to them. As I was talking to John with a lot of this process, some of it involved things like when you go fly and infected the conduit, there's these nanite probes that are going to go fly over to the transformer and heal it. And if they do, that's bad because not only will they heal it, so you're going to have to fight them to undo that progress, but yeah, it contributes towards failing the optional objective on advanced or the entire queue on elite. And so there's these markers over them, and they're like, hey, go shoot them. And then, as players are clearly very fond of, there is a voiceover saying, hey, they're approaching the transformer. Go kill it before you lose.
That's very nice, because the amount of times that I thought we were doing well, I look over and just see objective failed, I'm just like, no, please, no.
So for the newer players, it's designed to make it so that there's an easier onboarding experience, but the flip side of it is, yes, we need to make the queues more accessible for new players, especially when we're running it as an event, and there's going to be a lot of people in this for the first time. There's a reason that people like these queues, and have liked these queues for several years.
So instead of changing them completely and taking away everything people liked about them, we just removed all the pain points and made them better.
So one of the big two focuses that we were talking about were make sure that the reasons people liked these queues are still there and they will still continue to enjoy them, and make them accessible for players who are newer to this content or the game and are less certain of what to be doing in any given circumstance. So with those things in mind, there was some of the more obvious changes were made for this. For example, like the objectives that I talked about, where you can see the flashing shoot me arrow hovering above all the things that you're supposed to be shooting right now.
Please
and
shoot
not the things you're not supposed to be shooting right now. Those are there for people to more easily figure out what they're supposed to be doing. Some of the other things that may be less obvious are, for example, on Infected the Conduit, if you're playing on Advanced, they stop healing the Transformer after you fail the optional objective. It's changed, if you don't know, from have them heal it at all to have them heal it for an amount of health. I think it's heal the entire Transformer's hit point pool. They stop healing it after that point because one of the concerns brought up, the better players are probably going to start playing Elite. This will have the effect of increasing the difficulty of Advanced, even if we make no changes to it. And I'm sure there's people out there who have been stuck in runs where no one can kill the nanite spheres or the nanite probes before they make it to the Transformer, and you're just stuck in this never-ending queue. And that's not a good player experience by any stretch of the imagination. So we made it so that once you fail the optional objective, they're still there, but they're no longer going to make it impossible for the queue to end, because that's a really bad player experience, and not one that anyone ever wants to opt into. And so we were looking for ways like that we could make the queues better for people, without, the core experience of don't let them heal it is still there, without the terrible experience at the end. And that's I think a really clear example of the philosophy we were searching for. One of the other places this showed up is, for example, some players finish runs of Infected the Conduit incredibly fast. If I'm not mistaken, there were people running it in about 30 seconds of combat at the high end.
Yes.
This is, on the other hand, not representative of the average player experience. So for those of you running Infected the Conduit Advanced today, you're probably going to notice that your run timers are about the same, because we didn't make Advanced harder. There were various changes made to it that may have somewhat shifted the difficulty one way or another, but overall, it's about as difficult and about as time-consuming as it would have been. Elite difficulty has all sorts of fun things designed to make combat last longer, which is related to but different from making the queue last longer. Some of the things I've talked about on this already, on Elite, Borg cubes and especially tactical cubes have picked up a bunch of new tricks in these queues. And being an Elite-only thing that they do means that it's a tactic you don't have to worry about until you enter Elite, and which helps keep the game simple for players who don't want to opt into that optional challenge. But on Elite, the expectation is that you know what the Borg are, you know how to fight them, and so this, hey, they're doing something new, is something that players are prepared to adapt to and have been saying for years that they want to have.
Yes. We want harder Borg is something that people have been saying a lot.
And there's also a common routine of they do two things, make them behave more like a player, be interesting. There's a couple of comments on that would be, behaving like a player is actually exceptionally difficult. That's asking me to build an AI that's as good as a human being, and I would have a better paying job if I could build that. I'm sure there's like billions of dollars of grant money for that, but even just...
There's 75 cents. Here you go.
Well, but even beyond that, some of those players who are more familiar with our PvP environment than others may note a lot of the actions that players take make it more difficult to fight you. A lot of the people in our game want an experience where they are still fighting someone, but it's difficult, as opposed to it being difficult to fight them. The difference between, can I see you, can I damage you, are you going to be immune to my crits, out of range, are you healing yourself up? Like, a lot of player tactics are not fun tactics to face in an NPC, and so we've shied away from that to some extent. Like, the Borg won't randomly activate rock and roll for many reasons in the middle of this queue.
Although I would love to see the Borg randomly activating rock and roll.
It is a funny thing to see the first time. But yeah, and as you play through the elite versions of these queues, if that's something you want to do, you'll notice that they're using more abilities. They might have resistances to certain types of things more than what's normal, and I'm looking forward to players finding more of those out and sharing them with each other, or asking questions about it, or maybe keeping it to themselves. I don't know what players do these days.
Well, why don't we, I think I'm patched up. Yep, I'm patched up here. Why don't we boot into some of these queues, and you can tell us some of the philosophy behind them as we do them. Now, earlier in the day, I came over to Jet's desk and said, hey, maybe we'll run some of the elite queues. And Jet said nothing and stared at the screen. Not at me, at her screen, for a long time.
It was like 10 seconds.
That's a long time in a conversation, Jet. The implication, of course, being that I, your community manager, cannot handle ISE or other elite queues. Now,
which is a fact that I later stated.
If anybody's... Yes. Later it was outright stated. If anybody's seen this stream before, they know how absolutely and 100% correct that idea probably is. However, at the end of this stream today, we will try an ISE. So if you want to, be nice and team up with me and carry me, I'll appreciate it. But before that, we'll do some advanced stuff, just so we can see the new queues and how they look, and I can usually handle advanced.
I was having before these queues went out and before we could talk about them with the public, I was having a lot of conversations with...
I'm sorry, because of donations in chat, our offer for the new AI is now up to $1, 1 orange and 2 onions. Just in case you're tempted.
I'll have to consider it. I've considered it.
Okay.
I would do it if I could. So I was having a lot of conversations with one of our QA members about how difficult some of these queues are. The number that we had been throwing around was, in fact, at the Conduit, there's an initial spawn of what is currently, on Elite, a tactical cube, 2 normal cubes, and 4 spheres, if I remember correctly. And they have a combined hit point pool that requires you to deal approximately 550,000 damage per second as a team for 90 consecutive seconds.
Dear God.
Or you will fail the queue before you go anywhere. Now, there are 2-person teams that can pull that off. There's probably going to be 1-person teams doing that before the year's over, and if I'm lucky, not the week. But the average player's damage output to contribute to that is something that I was estimating was higher than what I thought Mike would do, and so I was a little bit hesitant to recommend he warp in and inflict himself upon an unsuspecting team.
Inflict myself, you say? Oh, somebody's already healing me. Thanks, Hassel. Hope it wasn't too much of a hassle.
Oh, Hassel. His name is Hassel. Oh, that's a neat character name.
And now we've got voice in this.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, back when we started working on this game, and which is back before it was Wii, because I only started working on this game 4-ish years ago, only. There was a lot less voiceovers. I was recently running through Boldly They Rode, which is a queue that some of you may remember as the Curlantier episode.
Everyone remembers it as the Curlantier episode. There is no other name for it. It is the Curlantier episode.
It's possible that not everyone has played that. Please go left.
I'm going left. I was trying to target a Borg, not the generator.
All right.
Don't you worry. I know to go left.
I thought as much, but anyway. And as I was playing through that, an episode I find particularly funny because I work with the voice of Curland.
Every day.
To the voice of Curland.
In fact. I am DM'd by Curland on occasion. Yeah. Not like dungeon mastered, not, DM'd.
Jeremy messages you game-specific questions.
Somebody come get your Curland. Yeah. I think he got lost in my DMs. What? In my DMs.
Anyway, I was...
Oh my god. Why am I even here?
The reason the Curlantier quotes are so iconic is because back then we didn't voice every single line. And so
barks.
Instead, you would have the contact pop up on your screen with a paragraph of text that you would read, and the voice actor, in this case, Jeremy Randall, would just say, "Curland here! This is Curland! Curland, come in! Are you okay?" And so when we redid these episodes, we now, as many of you probably know, we voice over all of the dialogue presented to you because we feel that makes for a better game experience.
It sure does.
And so you have the contact window in the briefing is read aloud to you. Well, acted aloud is a better way of putting it. There's mini contacts that pop up that are voiced, and so this is part of the polish pass that I mentioned. Most of the rest of it didn't get shown off easily because that run took about the amount of
30
time
seconds?
I expected.
Yeah.
No, that was closer to a good, I'd say, 75 seconds. You joke. I did a look recently at some stats about my character. I've run more than 1,000 Infected the Conduits on live. I have a pretty good handle on things.
I've got an overflow bag. Uh-oh. Sorry, keep talking while I empty this.
So the main obvious thing there was the voiceovers, as I mentioned. There wasn't time for much of the rest of it. There is an increased spawn on Infected the Conduit Advanced. Previously, it was just a normal cube and the 4 spheres around it.
I did notice that.
We upgraded it to 3 normal cubes and the spheres, because otherwise we felt like there was too much of a jump between that and the custom tactical cube flanked by 2 somewhat custom cubes flanked by 4 spheres. And we wanted to ease people into that as they progressed through the difficulty.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Most of the other changes that occur on Elite are more subtle than the opening spawn and have to do with the specific difficulty of some of the enemies. But I really liked the custom spawn for Elite because it's a very... It paints a scary picture when you warp in and you see those tactical cubes flanked by other cubes.
It's pretty
against
terrifying.
A backdrop of Borg.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. I've seen some questions flash in on both YouTube and other things. Twitcher Gaming. Yes, this is Jet. Her name is Jet. She designs all the ships for the game. Let's see. Q wants to volunteer to do some voice work. Q, are you SAG? If not, get a SAG card and you can do voice work for us. Trust me, if you didn't need one to do voice work, I already would have voiced some stuff in this game. I would have just camped out in front of Michael Henry, our sound designer's office, with a sign that says, "Please cast me." I've basically already done that. I've sent him my voice reel like 5 times.
Screen Actor Guild requirements, SAG, are part of why we haven't gotten new lines from Curland, even though Curland is here.
Yeah. A bunch of people on... Facebook are continuing a drum that I've seen beat on Twitter recently, which is that we've forgotten to give console the second part of the ship meta for this year. Well, technically it began last year, but back in November when the PC one was announced, it was announced that the console version of Into the Breach would happen in early 2020. If you look at your calendars now, it is early 2020. I promise you don't have long to wait. But you will have to wait until the time that we announced that it would come, which hasn't arrived yet.
If I'm not mistaken, we are approximately 1/40th of the way through 2020.
Yes.
Which would give us a long time to go before we stop being early in it still.
Yes, that is true. That is very true.
Probably not
but
all of that
I'll
long
just
is
say
required
this.
to wait.
You don't have that long to wait. Seriously, I promise you. Let's see. Jet, have you ever considered going down and revisiting an old ship, Mauricio Gaves Mello did? You sort of did that recently with the temporal ships, right? Yeah.
So revisiting a ship is more complicated than revisiting other parts of our game. In part because most of the ships in our game none of the ships in our game are free from the perspective of all of our free ones, other than the events, are a choice of get this ship or get a different ship.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are less free than that choice. And there are, with ships specifically, as such an integral part of a character, it is very difficult to make changes to them. Not technically difficult, but there have been, for example, comments of, you should change on some hypothetical ship a lieutenant engineering seat to a lieutenant tactical seat. And that is a change that I will not make, because there are players that want that lieutenant engineering seat, and to change that to a lieutenant tactical seat is a fundamental change to their character, and the frustration that you might have from not liking a ship as much is much lower from the frustration that someone would have if they now have to go buy a different ship to have the exact same seating that they liked about the ship before I changed it. And with seating being such an integral portion of ships, most changes aren't significant if they don't touch that, and there are almost no changes I can make to seating. So revisiting older ships is less likely. There are a few times in the past where we have changed seats to universal. Mm-hmm. That is relatively harmless change to make because everyone can still do the exact thing they used to do. But that is a less likely change to be made all the same because it's important to our game for many reasons that we can continue to design ships that are different. And the more stations that are universal on ships, the harder it is to design a ship that's distinct. So I'm very hesitant to go back and
make things
more universal because there's minimal gain and a higher cost from that.
I actually don't think I've played this queue before. What should I be doing here? I assume go to this glowy thing and click it.
You see the giant exclamation mark that is, I believe, new to the revamped version is an interact that you're supposed to be doing right now.
Okay, great. This
when
will cause these Borg to...
The Borg will wake up and you need to shoot them. The other big thing is the green square means doom is imminent.
Oop!
Do not stand in the
I've seen the green squares
square.
Before, actually. That's not new to me.
Yes.
I'm getting blown
it's
up.
Also not new
not
to this
adapting
queue.
as quickly because we did change that, if I remember correctly, which is
nice.
We
made a change to Borg adaptation to make it slower for weapons like the one you were currently using that fire rapidly.
Yeah, that was a change on Tuesday, right?
Fairly recently. I don't remember exactly.
I think I remember seeing it.
If you look to your left now,
there's another thing to hit down there.
Okay,
yes,
well,
that is where
what I was going to mark on is the green square is currently outlined. That means be prepared to not stand here, and you haven't ever shown one on screen that is do not be standing here right now.
Because oh my god, you'll die.
You see the glowing and the sparkling means
yes.
Do not be standing here right now.
So stand here, not at all.
So leave this spot before it kills you.
I see. I didn't notice that because I was very busy hacking.
Yes.
Respawn.
One of the other changes that happened to this queue that I forgot because it affects me less. So specifically on ground, a lot of the respawn points were changed for this queue. Borg queues in this cycle, and especially on ground, had been very unforgiving about respawns.
Mm-hmm.
The two major changes made were this queue, I believe, was one of the ones that would lock you into waiting for your team to die before you could respawn.
Oh, that's the worst. I'm so glad we changed that.
The other thing is the respawn timers on this used to be 15 seconds and increasing by 15 seconds for each time you had died.
Oh, wow. So you just sat here and read a newspaper then.
Right. So your respawn timers would be 15 and then 30 and then 45. And I think I would summarize it as game design mentality has changed in the... Don't do this interact right now. In the point in time since we have designed this, and rather than punishing you for failing, which that design very directly did...
Yeah, which is not a game design philosophy I believe in. I know it's other people's favorites. But...
It is a less modern game design philosophy, and it is not one we felt necessary to preserve in this in favor of the better experience of you respawn, try again, and hopefully beat this encounter.
Yeah.
Which is why the respawn timers on these queues are now, I believe...
Well, especially punishments that involve you get to play this game less.
Yes.
Are always... I think that's the worst kind of punishment, personally. Oh, God!
There is room in a game for difficulty and increasing difficulty.
Yes.
But
Dark Souls is a great example of that. Everybody loves Dark Souls because it's so hard, but it doesn't, when you die, say, no. It doesn't, when you die, say, like, you can't play this game for 2 hours. Go do something else. It says, like, well, try again and see what you've learned from this experience.
And so we are moving away from stop playing this game as a form of negative feedback. You still die. You still have bad things happen because you died, such as the fact that you're not currently helping the team in any way.
Yep.
You have to respawn, reactivate buffs, etc. But the respawn timers on ground are a static 5 seconds, and you are in a more accessible respawn point to more immediately help the team. Because it doesn't add anything to the game when you just have to wait for a minute because you died.
Yeah.
And it takes away things from the game.
So now we may, as we run through here, I think it was Into the Hive that we'd heard this about, and I don't know if QA's seen this one yet. Some people were asking about the ground, the bug that some people are seeing where the game crashes when you enter a Borg ground anything. We're looking into that right now. We've confirmed it happens on the mission Butterfly. So if you're planning on playing Butterfly, don't for right now until we fixed it. If your character does get stuck in a crash loop from one of these missions, luckily it seems like if you go play another character or something for about 30 minutes, the game will say, oh, this mission is now over, and boot you back to sector space, which ends the crash loop. So you shouldn't have to go to support to get your character moved. But it's probably better to just avoid it for right now.
Yeah.
The other thing that I was going to say is apparently, I think it's this queue, the Borg Queen may actually get pushed off the side, and then the queue becomes unfinishable. I've heard reports of that. We'll see if it happens to us.
Yeah. That's not something that happened to me several times in playtesting.
Yes.
But I know the team has heard of it, and I was talking to John yesterday because he was looking into it.
Okay, good. So that's already known. Oh, boy.
So the mechanic in this room is that...
Don't die. Don't step in
so
things
when you
explode.
walk into the room, you start an interact to upload a virus to the collective. And you can see on the right, there's this fancy new progress bar ticking in purple increments. It's virus upload status.
That's
and
neat.
so while you're in this room uploading, the Borg will spawn in and try and stop you, and the room will target you with a laser. And so while it's this little reticle that's chasing you, you can move around, do whatever. And where it finally collapses into a thin point,
and becomes that giant thing.
it spawns into a warning. This area is about to be very deadly in a couple of seconds, and you need to get out of that.
Borg question: you only ever see the adapted for your character, right? You never see it adapting to anybody else's fire.
It is my understanding that the adapted is a you-only thing that is displayed, and if that's not the case, we'll fix that shortly. But I think that's been my experience with it, and that's my understanding of it.
Me as well.
Also, there are various weapons you can use to adapt to the Borg less frequently or not at all. For example, if you use a weapon such as a sniper rifle that fires one shot every second or two, you will damage the Borg less, and so it will take longer for them to adapt to you. If you use the new cyclical modulation weaponry, I think it is, that is the reward for the Borg Resurgence event we're currently running, the Borg adapt to a damage type. And
so
because
you can just cycle
weapons,
to the next damage type immediately by pressing 3.
Right. So because they have the ability on them that lets you switch them to a different damage type, which is a unique ability for the weapons in our game, you have a lot longer before you actually have to remodulate your weapons. Or you can use some of the weapons that don't deal, or that deal physical damage or kinetic damage, and the Borg don't adapt to that.
Like this sword.
Like the sword, or the Tommy gun, or the TR-116B. Please, you can use the TR-116A. I don't like the TR-116A.
Why don't you like it?
It shoots through walls, which is neat, and it breaks things.
Oh, no.
So the reason you can't upgrade it is because it breaks things, and if we keep it at Mark II, it can break less things.
Yeah.
So now that you've completed that room, I think you're about to walk into a really neat hallway.
Neat hallway.
Yeah.
Full of Borg.
It is full of Borg.
Borg that I will now attack with this sword.
You have chosen to run all the way to the end of the room. This is
In my defense,
bold
that's what the
decision.
game targeted. Let's summon some backup. Oh, looks like somebody killed them all anyway.
So this room was...
See, I'm invincible because other players in this game are better than me. When I play on stream, I'm more invincible because people team up with me who are better than me.
I play Q so that you can have a good time, Mike. I know, it's okay.
At Assault wants to know if we can get the TR-16A, TR-116A in the Phoenix box. I'm going to guess the answer to that is,
So,
dear God, no, please no.
the thing you just heard me say was, I
breaks
want
the game and
players
you don't
to
like.
use it as little as possible. Therefore, I'm not going to give you more ways to get
So
it.
it'll be in Mud's Market tomorrow.
So, this cutscene, I don't recall how much of a revamp this has gotten, if any. But I know we were looking at this cutscene because it was not the greatest when we first played through this episode, and it is clearly better now. Especially on ground where there is a place for meaningful cutscenes. I know we have been talking about getting West in time to go look at them and make them better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we got that in time for this release or if that was a soon thing, but either way, I know that was much better than it used to be, and I am incredibly thankful for that.
Your Majesty, have I introduced you to my good friend Lightning? Wow, we are just murdering the Borg Queen here.
Yes,
Oh no, don't fall off the edge, please. Okay.
Yeah. So there are a couple of stages to this fight with the Borg Queen. I believe the next one is you face the Assimilated Tactical Gorn.
Ah, yes, I remember him.
Which is a very fun enemy to fight. Much like the Sompek Lightning, it makes me think of good times running Sompek to round 90 whatever.
Yeah.
I was not one of the people running it to round 400 something, but I applaud those people.
You could have been, if you wanted to. I know you and your skills.
I can't even lie and tell you that I have a life and I don't spend 8 hours playing Star Trek Online, but sometimes I like to think that about myself.
Oh, here he is.
Yeah.
Hey, buddy. Oh, his
And
model
so-
might need an update.
Yeah, this room, the final boss fight here, does a thing that we all thought was really neat, where you walk through a couple of rooms learning mechanics, and then in the boss fight you run into them all while
Yeah,
fighting
which
a
is
boss. Because you can see there's the panels on the ground, and they light up as "don't be standing here," and then it's very painful to be standing here. And there's also the targeting lasers of it's going to chase you, and then it's going to be very deadly to stay where you are. And then there's also the Borg Queen or the Assimilated Tactical Gorn to fight.
I ran right into a laser blast.
You
That was on
ran
me.
through 2 squares of "don't stand here" into someone else's laser blast of "this is going to track you."
Oh,
and
it's
shoot
okay.
you.
We got her.
And we are now at the final cutscene because the people playing with you are good.
People playing with me are very good, and I appreciate it. So a couple people are asking about, there may have been some items that appeared in Mud's Market this week that were new. These items, of course, were items that were
Don't be standing there, Mike.
you might have noticed, if you looked at them, that they had, for example, the wrong art, or other things that may have been wrong about them. From this, you may have surmised that they weren't meant to be out in the store yet. You may have surmised correctly. That is why they are not there anymore. They are coming, though. I mean, obviously. Won't have any more information about that officially on the stream, but they're coming back.
The other obvious change made to the queues that you may have guessed or figured out or may have announced, I don't actually recall. They currently are awarded choice of all marks because it is an event running right now to go run them, and our events reward all marks while they are events. When the event is over, as only Borg queues, they will go back to only rewarding the Borg marks that you are used to. So expect that.
All right, I'm gonna do Kittimer here. Also
Okay.
on advanced.
Kimmer Vortex on advanced. That sounds like
Yep.
a good plan. If I am hearing correctly, I don't know if Kittimer Vortex Elite has been beaten yet. It may have been, and I may have just not heard about it.
I'm
But
sure it has.
it is my understanding that the boss fight, due to the cloaking mechanic, is currently incredibly difficult to beat in the 90-second timer that you have to.
Ooh, somebody's dropped the Klingon barge, or the Fakiri barge into this fight. I'm very excited about that.
I love that ship, and I love the person flying it.
I don't know the person flying
it, but I love them for flying that ship. It's
Duke Nukem, so you may love them.
I mean, Duke Nukem said trans rights, so he's a pretty good guy in my book.
What was the other one the other day? Oh god, it was... Geralt of Rivia, that's right.
Yes. So
I turned all of these powers on so that they'll all run out during the briefing.
Yeah.
What I just did, for pro tip, don't do that.
That's what we call a...
Rookie
not the
mistake?
greatest of ideas. No, so these queues used to not have briefing timers.
Yep.
We added those a while back. Part of that was because, as you may have noticed, not everyone loads into the queue immediately. And at that point in time, I had been thinking ahead to an Infected the Conduit revamp where you had to beat the initial wave in a timer. And the last thing I wanted was, you must beat this queue within X seconds. Also, it's already started before you load in, good luck.
Oh god, I know.
And allowing players time to coordinate before the queue started, or launch pets, or do whatever else was something we felt was important. I also know there was some conversations about wanting the option to skip the briefing timers if everyone agrees.
The problem with that is different loading times, right? Oh, you've got targeting things on the probes now.
If there's an interact to allow players to choose to skip it after they load in, that's something we were considering doing.
Oh yeah.
You'll know if we agree to do it because it'll be in the game. But yeah, so one of the big cues here is you can see there's targeting reticles on the probes that are flying towards the time vortex.
I love that. This is what I usually do in this queue. Is I go on probe duty.
And if you look to the right, while it's still there, you can see that the generators healing the transformer before they get blown up also have shoot me icons so that you don't try and shoot the transformer before you should be shooting the transformer. Of course, you may just be good enough to shoot the transformer before those are dead and kill it and cool. Or you may want to gravity well the transformer so that it also damages the generators. You can still definitely do that. Good for you. Go do your thing. But for the players that don't know what to do, there's targeting indicators because they probably can't do that. And so...
is this the one? Is it both that we added the shield around the big transformer in, or was it just this one?
I don't recall if Khitomer Vortex has...
It did have one when we started, so that we make it both of them.
Then yes, because Infected the Conduit also has that.
Yeah.
So I was on stream recently where someone had gotten an idea from possibly it being slipped in game somewhere that we were going to be revamping Borg queues. And this person made a very impassioned plea, Mike, that you repeated to me of, don't make the gateway untargetable and infected.
And I think at that point that I made you that plea, I knew we were already doing that.
I had known for 2 weeks that we were going to do that, and I was in a really awkward position of not wanting to comment on it. And so I want that person to know, if they're listening, I didn't go make the decision despite you. The decision had been made for weeks after multiple conversations on it.
I'm sorry that I passed that impassioned plea on to you, but I did it sort of because I knew we were doing it.
Yeah. So, we made that change because for players, targeting the gateway before anything has been destroyed is not usually meaningful gameplay, except for those players on the very high end of things.
Yeah, it is a way for the players on the very high end of things to flex their muscles metaphorically and dunk on some fools. But
and for those players on the very high end of things, please go flex your muscles by playing Elite. It is at least a challenge, even if it's definitely still beatable in a couple of minutes. And I'm sure you can find interesting and fun things to do there. If you can't, we'll look at making Elite more of a challenge. I don't know, but
yeah, send us feedback. Obviously, if that becomes a problem.
In summary, there is a very high cost to players targeting the gateway before they knew they were supposed to not do that, and there was not a lot of gameplay gained by targeting the gateway while everything is still up. And so we felt it was in the best interest of our game as a whole to make the gateway untargetable early.
I agree with that pretty wholeheartedly.
So we're in the boss fight phase of this.
Not
for
very
a
much
couple of
longer.
seconds longer. And the thing that some of you may have noticed is that it used to be just the boss going on at this point. Because the boss flies around in cloaks and does other things, there is some amount of nanite probes and possibly spheres that spawn from the time conduit, so that there is something to be doing and more than one enemy that you can be shooting at this point in time. That's new to this queue at this point in time. That's why we did it, and now you know that we did it.
Qthulu says, but think of the fun of forcing people into AFK timers in ISA. I hope that was sarcastic, Q, because I think better of you.
I also think better of Q.
Yes, Ronnie Jackson Jr., that was fast. One thing you guys will notice as you watch on stream is my queues pop faster, unless I'm playing random. They always pop faster random, but when I pick a specific queue, my queues pop faster on stream, and I tend queues tend to, or TFOs, tend to go a lot faster when I'm playing on stream. That's because the lovely people watching the stream are also playing the game and go, oh, Kel's queuing up for this, let me also queue up for it, so that people on the stream can see me flex my mighty deeps muscles, which we have now seen twice, and I'm very proud of all of you. That sounds sarcastic. No, I'm very proud of all of you.
Yeah.
You are all like my children, my deepsy children.
And the fun thing is, I know if we warp into an elite queue, I will actually get a couple of minutes to talk about things. But, yeah.
Just a few minutes, anyway. Yeah. Let's see. I've seen a couple of questions about getting within X kilometers of Denatra will trigger the cloak on the bird of prey. Do you know about this myth and whether it can be busted here on the stream this day?
I am familiar with the myth. The comment I would make is, I know before the revamp that used to be the case. I don't know if that changed during the revamp, because I haven't looked at that logic in a couple of months. And so I can't comment either way, but if there's a stream next week, I'll try and know for that one.
Okay, cool. So even if you're not the guest in that stream, I'll just have you pop your head in and say, myth busted or
I can just
confirmed.
Send you a message on, whatever.
No, you have to pop your head in. Just lean in from the side dramatically.
I'm just gonna jump onto the ceiling, just float down. You see this purple hair. What's that?
You'll be like,
I have come with the answer to questions.
He'll be like the fanciest ring girl. Oh God! When I was in college, we'd just seen that movie for the first time, and I was not at all freaked out. Of course.
Of course not.
I got back to the common room in our dorm, and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, hid behind the couch and put her hair in front of her face, and then crawled over the couch to come at me. I left. I didn't talk to her for the rest of the night.
That is hilarious, and she is wonderful.
Yeah. Yes, Mauricio, you are absolutely right. These queues went fast because I am a deeps master. That is what happened. I am the king of all deeps.
Also, for the first time in my life, I would like to send a positive shout out to Zone Chat for Gorn puns. Most of them are Gorn puns, and shout out to most of the people doing innocent Gorn puns.
Looks like we're still on a timer for most of these queues, so why don't we look at some fan art real quick? As we forgot to do that.
That sounds like it was all planned to have downtime.
All planned from the start. All right, so first of all, Chocolate sent us this shot of an admiral and his blue screen of death.
That is a deeply unfortunate scenario.
It's a very unfortunate scenario, although not the worst I've seen this week with a blue screen. Someone on Reddit posted a picture of a crystal ball with a blue screen of death. The spirits are really angry. Meanwhile, Duncan Idaho sent us some fan art this week. Some of it's not even Trouble related, or tardigrade related. I know, it's shocking. This is, he probably sent descriptions with all of them that I should have read. This is a really cool looking dude.
It is.
He's kind of shivering on one side. Maybe he's burnt. Maybe that's fire.
It's turning. The person is turning. It's movement lines.
But this is not all movement lines. Then looks like it could be fire. So I think this person may actually be on fire.
I don't know. That would be a bad thing. You should try not being on fire.
Stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll, buddy. All right. Meanwhile, also from Duncan, Idaho, this is a pin-up art is what it is. This would be painted on the side of Kirk's spaceship if regulations allowed him to paint things on the side of his spaceship. But it's nice pin-up art. It's tasteful.
Yeah.
And also, of course, a tardigrade.
Of course,
laying a trap for Santa because I think this fan art was sent in several weeks ago. Mark Hawkman sent us a couple of shots of the new Fakiri Vanity Shield on different ships. He sent me like 7, so I didn't grab all of them. But this is a Gorn ship, sworn allegiance to the Fakiri. This is a what is that, Jet?
I want to say that's one of the Klingon Raptors. It's the one in the Ambassador bundle, I think. but I'm very bad at pronouncing Klingon ship names even when I remember them.
Mm.
But I think it has the...
Oh, it's an Orion ship. They're yelling at us. It's an Orion The previous one was an Orion ship.
That I would believe.
Yeah, they aren't yelling at me about this one yet.
But between the fact that it looks like a Raptor, that bundle had a Raptor, and it looks to have the distinctive 3 points to shoot the fancy console from that bundle, that's the ship I think this is.
Okay, people are saying it's the Veteran Destroyer. Veteran Destroyer. Veteran Destroyer.
Okay. I have not flown the Klingon Veteran Destroyer. I should do that at some point.
That's a Herald Dreadnought.
That is a Herald Dreadnought.
I got one, Jet.
To be fair, the Herald Dreadnoughts are very distinctive.
They sure are. I actually, when I got one when I first started working here, but long before I'd ever played Iconian content, I remember just flying around in it going, what the hell is this? Why?
Yeah.
How? And then I started fighting them and learned so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fancy ships, though.
Fancy schmancy. This is an awesome shot of the winter ship.
Yeah.
Just looking all badass.
Yeah.
Flying through space.
Yeah.
This is another shot.
I love the winter ship. I say this a lot.
But I love the ship. I love both of the Fakiri ships.
The Fakiri ships have been a couple of my favorite ships to design because the artwork is awesome and the fantasy is awesome and it lets me do super cool things. The Maw of Grethor is the type of name I will never ever get to do anywhere else. Most of the rest of them are technobabble related to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
Like spore-infused anomalies is not a trait I felt bad about. In fact, I think it's a relatively popular trait. And it was cool to get to do stuff with spores, but I get to do a lot of things that are related to more traditional Trek sci-fi.
Yeah.
And the unleash the gods of the underworld and literal fire in space on people is unique, and so I love them for that.
This is the first ship that's ever made me want to start an alt for a ship. Like, make me want to go, like, I'm going to start over and from the beginning create, like, straight up death pirates. Like Cogtash by Klingon Main has a little bit of a space piratey thing going for him. That's kind of what I was going for, but, like, this is just chains and metal and axes, and I don't think we have axes in the game, but you could probably do something with a Lurpa. And, of course, one of the best pets in the game, and the ones that I'm so annoyed with you not letting me fly on other ships. The soulless, claw-swipey dudes.
So, when I was building the ship, I just said I needed to make those, and I didn't get much pushback because no one was expecting me to make it, so no one was prepared with arguments for why I shouldn't. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to give them claw swipes, I'm going to give them flamethrowers, and let them charge at people. And they're like, you're going to do what? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to do that. It's going to be great. And they're like, in space. I'm like, yeah. And by all accounts, they're still doing pretty well, so I'm glad I made it happen.
They're great.
It's just, I assumed I could do it and didn't ask people to tell me no, and so they didn't.
And so there we are. All right, let me go back to the game. I don't think my timer's run out yet, but we can check.
Maybe.
Infected the Conduit's back. Okay.
Yeah.
Well then.
Warp into it on Elite. So
let's do this. Okay, people watching the stream, I summon you now. Join me in this madness. I am going to die a lot and generally lower your team's deeps. But I believe in you. And I've always wanted to see what it was like when this queue lasted longer than 30 seconds. Actually, I've seen that a lot, but let's do this.
You've been on the bad side of that.
Yeah.
So, I would like to send a thank you ahead of time to everyone who helps us in this queue, and an apology to everyone ahead of time for helping us with this queue.
R.I.P. Drawfee.
But yeah, I am really excited to have Infected the Conduit Elite back in players' hands now. It's been a long time since Delta Rising, and I was really excited to get to work on this. So John did a lot of the revamps for the queues. I did a lot of the work on the Elite versions of the queues, and so it's by our powers combined that you have this. And that view right there is the screenshot that I sent out a while back when I had first finished making it. Was we are the Borg. And that was the screen. We have an internal, like, hey, send off screenshots of what you've worked on. List. I don't send things there ever because it's, look at this I built ship numbers. They made things happen. And not even I always want to see that, but...
Mima Ranglout says someone do a mic death count. I'll take care of that. We'll do it like an improv thing.
And so what you see here are a bunch of relatively normal cubes, other than the fact that one of them is a tactical cube. Yes, Man-Bear-Pig, you are probably going to die. The main thing that you'll see on these that is deviation from the standard Borg cubes is an ability called Enhanced Borg Nanite Regeneration, I think is what it's called. And it is, as I was talking to some people in chat about it the other day, it's essentially a hazard emitters that the Borg can only use on themselves, and they will only use it when they're missing enough health. So it won't keep them at 100%, but if you're shooting them, expect them to start using it.
Whoa, I sped up for no apparent reason. I was trying to use my teleport behind them.
A team buff that does that.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's just going okay so far.
And the timer on the side is here because if your team cannot beat the opening waves of this in 90 seconds...
It's not worth trying.
Don't waste the next 15 minutes trying to beat the queue, because you won't. And with the Battle of Corfez, that was one of the things I appreciated was... The boss at the end of the Battle of Corfez is difficult, and you had to beat it before certain things happened. But you could usually beat it if you could beat the initial wave, and so I made sure that we had that on this portion of the queue.
The spheres here.
You'll notice again, they're much like with Kinnemer Vortex, there's the target me icons above the generators.
Oh boy, here we go. It's working again.
It's
working again.
Nanite spheres and probes with the "Hey, go shoot me" icons. You can also just drag them 18 light years away from the rest of everything. But they will keep spawning, so you'll have to keep doing that.
Sure, but hey, I'm contributing. Oh my god, they're so much faster than they used to be.
They're being pulled into a gravity well.
Oh, okay. I thought they were just charging back into the fight at like 4 times my impulse
we made
speed.
Changes to this queue. I don't think one of them was speeding the nanite or the Borg probes and spheres up.
So fast. Log trajectory. Spin around. Open fire.
And so the nanite transformer has, of course, been demolished with
Yep.
plenty of time to spare.
And I'm just going to keep focusing on the spheres because that's something that I know I can accomplish. One thing that's a lot of people, sort of like, well, how do you really, get good in a world where people with really good deeps are just destroying the objectives? Find the little objectives you can do that other people aren't focusing on. If everybody's focusing on blowing up the thing, but nobody's like hunting probes in Kinnemer Vortex or hunting nanite spheres in this one, take on that duty yourself. You'll be surprised how often people ignore those things, like those little things, and how helpful it is to have somebody whose job it is to jump on it. The same thing is true of hunting down all of the Borg you need to reconnect, and and also I was gonna say it eventually. Getting the particles, get the particles.
And so one of the changes I mentioned a bit earlier, you can now see on the right side where it says Transformer Adaptive Repairs, there's this bar going from red to green.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much healing, or how adapted they have been. It clearly has not happened yet, or you would have failed this queue if memory...
Yeah, I think one shot fails it.
So one shot fails it is what it used to be.
Oh, okay.
We have changed that. That's why there's this bar now telling you, hey, how much healing have they done?
Okay, so it's a certain amount of healing now.
And it looks like it's still an optional on Elite. I didn't actually recall how that ended up. But... yeah, if you let them heal, bad things will happen.
Somebody sped me up. Oh boy. Okay.
So yeah, you can accomplish that optional objective in a number of ways, either by obliterating the transformer and generators before anything can touch it,
which is the most common way.
Yeah, and that's definitely still an option. Or the other thing that was also an option and maybe more relevant on Elite now is keep the things from making it there. Because if they can't get there, they can't heal it. I want to say it's a 10-kilometer range.
And that time that worked. Yeah. Sometimes, so I have this disruption pulse emitter that works really well with the graviton displacer. You turn both of them on, and then turn on your... Oop! 1! That's 1 death. Was not paying attention to my health. But if you turn them both on and turn on either fire at will or scatter volley, I'm floating in space.
Mm-hmm.
There I go. You usually will murderate the correct things.
And so while we are in Elite, the other majorly special thing is this cube gets extra upgraded on Elite. And one of those things is, some of you may have noticed the nanite probes that just warped in. Those are going to go heal the tactical cube. So killing the tactical cube is a lot more difficult as long as the gateway is still alive. because they will stop warping through the gateway to heal it when the gateway dies.
Oh, there we go. 2! That time my mistake was taking on a tactical cube by myself while everyone else was doing something
This
else.
tactical cube will murder you.
Yep.
Especially you.
Especially me, because I suck, as we've established.
And so you will run into teams, because I ran into one the other night last night, because there's been no other night, that can take both of these out at the same time. And if you are not on that team, I would recommend you go fight the gateway, and then once the gateway is down, you can take on the Borg cube now that it stops spawning more things to heal itself.
Okay.
So that thing you mentioned earlier about doing little things to help people, there's still some nanite probes floating around there.
All right, let's take care of that.
And
coming out of cloak.
Yeah.
I like to activate my abilities first. I don't know if it matters, but they seem to all be dead. Let's focus fire on this cube.
And so the Borg tactical cube is here, and it means business. One of the things I did that I was happy
Does that
about,
affect a power of the cube or something we're doing?
that effect is definitely someone else's something, and I
Okay.
am not sure what off the top of my head. Borg tactical cube is a little bit smarter than some of the people. Well, and it might be a little bit smarter than some of the people that you run into, but that's rude to say, and that's not what I was trying to say. It is better at using its abilities than most of the cubes will run across, and it is a very heavily advanced Borg tactical cube. Although it is the lamest way to prove this is the case, it is also fairly simple to point this out relative to everything else if you check the number of hit points this cube has. If you right-click the hit point bar and go to info, you get a display of the 36 million hit points this cube has.
I see.
And the rate at which they are ticking downwards or upwards, depending on if it's healing itself or regenerating or
But
whatever.
in this case, it's ticking downwards because we're amazing.
But pure bags of hit points are incredibly boring, and there is more to this cube than simply that. Not all of them are things I necessarily want to talk about on the stream.
Okay.
But some of them are things you will doubtless pick up on while playing the queue. It's fun. I had fun working on it. And hopefully you all have been enjoying these queues so far.
All right. Well, we've got a few minutes here, so if anybody has any more questions about these queues, you can ask questions in general as well, but Black Box says that that effect was a engineer freeze from the winter event.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It looked cold.
So if you got any other questions about these queues, we will answer them. I guess this isn't about the queue, but Jerome, yes, console players will get the Muds Market.
So, fun trivia fact here. When you play queues on Advanced or Elite, you will get injuries if you die, which is why your ship currently has an injury on it that you should go repair.
Mm-hmm.
It has.
You want me to do it now? I see.
So, there are a couple of ways to repair injuries for players who may be unfamiliar with the system. You can carry components for space, or I forget what they're called for ground, but someone in chat will remember. Regenerators, I think. And those allow you to heal injuries on the fly so that they stop having their negative impact on you during the queue. Otherwise, when you go to a major hub such as Deep Space Nine or Space Dock, New Romulus, Kronos, I think maybe K7, there are vendors that will do this for you for free without requiring energy credits or components or anything along those lines. And so you can run to those afterwards and they will do it for free.
There's another thing that you could do to fix this particular problem.
So, notably your starship is not an officer, but good Lord, Mike, what happened to you?
I went into a couple of ground queues, I'm guessing.
I see this.
And now I will go to the ship repair bay. I know where they both are.
Okay.
I just wanted to heal my personal injuries first.
That makes
Because I
sense.
saw how many I had.
Yeah.
But there's another thing you can do. You personally can do.
You can play normal.
No, I mean you, Jet. You can take out the injury and damage system because it sucks.
All right, sure. I am definitely not telling anyone that I'm going to do that right now because I'm definitely not going to do that right now. But yes, Mike, we can have this conversation with more things.
Okay, where's...
Yeah, so you can go to the ship repair yard and they will repair
it.
All of it for free.
Yay!
And then and your ship is free of these problems.
Yes. That does remind me, I did receive, and this is more of a teaser than anything else because I don't know when it's going out, but I did receive a email just a few hours ago about finally achieving one of the most requested quality of life changes we've ever had here, and I'm very excited about it. And we'll have more details on that when it's all tested by QA and we know it works.
Yeah. it saves a lot of hassle and annoyance, and I'm sure players are going to look forward to it. I'm not going to say any other words about it before I spoil what it is. But
Evil Coleslaw says, this is sort of a bug report for you or John, I guess, but they displayed an infected the conduit where someone launched their hangar pets during the briefing, and this aggroed the Borg while they were in the briefing, and no one could move.
That's hilarious. We'll do something about that.
That's
There's
hilarious.
Something about that
but
will
bad,
not be stopping you from watching Hangar Pets, to clarify.
Bad, but hilarious. But bad.
Yeah.
We'll figure out.
But thanks for the report. We'll look into that one.
Yeah. Let's see. Stargate Wars blogs for the 10th anniversary start when? Next week. There's some. So we're doing something a little different this year. A lot of the big cool stuff for the anniversary, especially around the storyline, are going to be more of a surprise when the anniversary launches. But there will be details on what the anniversary ship is and what some of the other features are coming out in blogs soon. Next week is when a lot of that starts. So keep an eye out and pay close attention.
And Jet, get me those blogs right. Yes, working on it.
You did. You've gotten me most of them, I think. Yeah. We need Warship Voyager. You're right, we do. Please no Omega event this year. Too late! You should have requested that in October!
Yeah, the broader sense of what Mike's getting at there is the things going out with the anniversary event were decided about 6 months ago. I made a suggestion for some things related to an event about 8 months before it started. For those of you paying attention, 3 months after the event ended, I was like, hey, Jeremy, now's probably a good time to make the suggestion because we're about to start planning for it. And he's like, yep, now's about the right time.
Yep.
So if you want to get us suggestions for stuff, it would need to be about when the event is going on so that we can have it for a couple of months before we need to start thinking about it.
Yep. Mira Ranglout, the anniversary will be one major update. It's not going to be a year's worth of updates like Discovery. After the anniversary is when we're launching into our next big story with our next major update, which will be months and months after that. It's one self-contained, pretty big story with a bunch of other cool stuff happening with it as well. Somebody said they thought there were 10 free ships coming with the anniversary. I don't know where that information came from. There's one anniversary ship for the Omega event, as there has traditionally been in the past. And we'll have more details on that ship soon. Let's see. And blah, 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 blah. Any other questions you guys have? Any questions? But camera is apparently out of sync with the voice. I apologize for that, but we're almost done with the stream, so I'll try and fix it for next week.
No.
Blah, 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 blah. Looks fine on this end.
It works on my machine.
Must be a Twitch problem.
It works on my machine. Mike, are you a developer?
Non-reproducible.
Developers.
Must be user error.
Developers.
There's no delay on the microphone, so it's a different kind of problem. So I'll make sure to test it some more next week and try and fix it. Are we finally in 2411? I believe we are. I'd have to double check that.
I never want to comment on what year it is in our game.
I think the anniversary is rolling us over to 2411, but don't take that as gospel. We will find out.
I would say a little bit on what you mentioned earlier. The anniversary is one update. It's one that all of us internally are really excited for, and I'm going to tell Mike right now, I'm not saying anything else about what it is, but it's one
really
that
exciting
we're
stuff
all really excited for, and I think you all are really going to enjoy the anniversary.
Cthulhu, I should finally have time to send out those extra life codes tomorrow. Sorry for the delay. The dates for the anniversary event, not yet. Soon. The USS Ross looks beautiful, and I have no other information about it right now, other than I've seen her work in progress, and she is gorgeous, and you will be able to fly her soon. I think one of the cool things about that, without saying too much, is that I think not right at the exact same time as the crew of Clear Skies gets to board their ship, you will also be boarding the Ross, but fairly close.
So Mike, for people who might not know, what is the USS Ross?
So the USS Ross is the ship that we are designing for the tabletop RPG Clear Skies, which is the spiritual successor to Shield of Tomorrow, and is run by Eric Campbell and Sam DeLev and a bunch of other wonderful friends of theirs. And you can check it out on twitch.tv/Clear Skies, and they have more information. I believe they're still at Shield of Tomorrow, but just Google Clear Skies and Star Trek, and you'll probably find them. And we're working with them to design their ship for the game, as well as to give away some in-game Star Trek Online prizes during their streams. So keep an eye out. And let's see. Any ships from the Picard series coming? Yes. Next question.
As I've said in streams in the past, if there's a ship players want it, if there's a ship players want it, and we're going to try to get it to you at some point.
T6 Oberthwin. Have thanks everyone. That was a great stream. Bye bye. Bye everyone.
Everybody.
Bye bye. Bye bye now.
Everybody.
Bye bye.